Welcome back, guys, to another episode, another ItsTadpoleMMA amateur prediction video. This week we've got UFC 262, Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira, at the top of an actually stacked card. Plenty of contenders for fight of the night, which we will get into in just a moment. But before we look ahead, we'll quickly look back on the week that was. Finally, a good week for the Tadpole. We finished on verdict with a gold badge. We got 4 correct predictions, 2 incorrect predictions. But yeah, in terms of the betting side of things, we went up 10.62 units. Courtesy of the single plays, we did drop the multi just by the last leg, Michelle Waterson. I thought we might have looked closer than what it ended up looking. Marina Rodriguez was fantastic. The conditioning held up. Michelle Waterson did seem to have a grappling edge, courtesy or best presented in that 4th round, but she just didn't go to it early enough, and then she didn't really go back to it again in the 5th. So yeah, Marina Rodriguez, I don't think the $1.40 price tag was warranted, but I mean, maybe that's just me being salty. Great performance by her. If she gets the fight with Joanna Jedrzejczyk, why the fuck did I even bother trying to say her last name? I always butcher that shit. JJ, if that fight goes ahead, that'll be awesome. I'd like to just take a little moment here to put some respect on the formula that I am formulating, because it was the only reason I picked Neil Magny last week. I hated the play. Go back and listen to the recap. I thought Jeff Neal would win that fight within 2 rounds, but the formula, it said, Neil Magny here, he's a 50% perceived edge at the bookies. So I took him. Hesitantly, reluctantly. I played him on verdict, and it ended up being a great call, and we cashed because of it, and I couldn't have been happier. That leads us in to my best play of the week. There were a few contenders, considering I had such a good week. The Neil Magny selection was up there on the radar, but he was a popular pick on verdict, so I couldn't have chosen that. I also had Gregor Gillespie via a 2nd round knockout, and I did actually specify ground and pound, so that was another incredibly good call. But other people did have Gillespie and by knockout, so again, probably not that. Marcus Rogerio de Lima via decision, another massive call that no one else was on. Who else saw that going to the cards? The Tadpole did. Who else saw it going to the cards on favour of Marcos Rogerio de Lima? The Tadpole did. So another massive call, but no, none of those 3 were my best calls of the week. The best call of the week was Alex Morono, a 1st round knockout. I had faith in his heavy hands. It was a bit of a fade on Cowboy. Just didn't like the scenario for him, with him, looking to ride off into the sunset against Diego and coming up against a much hungrier, much more well-rounded and much more dangerous opponent in Morono. Played him in the 1st round, bet him, cashed it, big call, paid off. My worst call of the night, I've already alluded to it was Michelle Waterson. At the time of my video, other props are out. Could have chosen other legs at a similar price point and didn't, and hence didn't cash the multi. She was outmatched on the feet. So anyhow, I've recapped for too long because I wanted to toot my own horn. I need to plug myself sometimes, especially in the horrendous year that has been thus far. But hopefully this is the turning point. As for this weekend, the formula, it's evaded me. No moneyline bets for this week's card, but we've got the props out and we're going hard again on some juicy fucking singles. So let's get into it. Bottom of the verdict main card, we've got Jacare Souza versus Andre Muniz. Jacare 1.59 times and $1.85. Muniz 2.69 times and $1.95. Question myself, a lot of other cappers are thinking, is Jacare done? I'm not so sure, The thing is, Kevin Holland out-grappled Jacare Souza, which is a fucking massive problem, because Kevin Holland has been exposed in the grappling department his last 2 fights, and Jacare got slept with a shot that he just shouldn't have. Kevin Holland he's a fucking unorthodox guy, but for him to generate knockout power from the spot that he was off his back with a back fist, I don't know. That's a worry. Past fights aside though, this fight, their styles, they're really similar on the feet. Neither guy really pushes a pace or goes with volume. Both guys can throw power, but it's, shitty technique. Of the two, I think Jacare has better boxing. But, he likes the inside. He likes to dirty box. He wings his shots. He's all hooks. And that does not check out so much against a guy with such a big frame like Andre Muniz. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage in this fight. They are of the same height at 6'1". This fight's going to play out on the ground. Both BJJ players with decent MMA wrestling offensively. And, often you see matchups like this and that cancels each other out. And we end up seeing a striking fight. Not in this one. Those are my thoughts, Both guys average over two takedowns per fight. Both guys have terrible takedown defense. Both guys love submitting others. Both guys are liabilities on the feet. So it's going to the ground. The thing is, both of these fighters are so strong. So in a clinch fight, in a ground fight, who edges it? I honestly don't really know. I can't really tell you. We're going to have to see when they match up in the cage. Durability, neither of these guys' strong suits. Both have lost 4 fights via knockout. And when you're looking at the stats, neither of these guys have been submitted before, which is a big factor with them being so highly credentialed in the jiu-jitsu realm. But I am going to play a submission here. I think, like I've said, this plays out on the mat, giving both guys plenty of opportunities to wrap a submission up. And although both guys have power and no chin, I don't really like either of their striking to actually find that big shot. So a submission, the bigger value is with Andre Muniz. He is the younger guy. He would seem to be fresher, less worn. And it's going to be him. Andre Muniz, round 1 submission at 22.74 times. You look on the other side of this, and Jacare Souza is 3 times to win by submission. You are literally getting over 7 times the multiplier with Andre, and I think it is honestly just as likely. So yeah, that's the read. As for the first round, 11 of Andre's 13 pro submissions have been in the first frame. Obviously, no submission loss data for Jacare. But of his 4 knockout losses, 3 of them also coming in the first round. Hence, the first frame play. Next fight along, Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza. Burgos 2.97 times and $1.96. Barboza 1.51 times and $1.84. There's no way of putting this any differently than telling you what you probably already know, that this is an absolute fucking banger of a fight. Edson Barboza, he has the power advantage. For sure, his striking is incredibly technical and incredibly beautiful. Beautiful. It is so beautiful to watch. He has every technique in the book. He is defensively reliable, and his kicks take catastrophic effect on his opponents. And Shane Burgos, he eats it. He relies on his chin a lot. He plays the hands down approach, focuses on his footwork, but it gets him tagged. The thing with Shane is he does land his own shots because of his hands down approach. He's super awkward. His angles are off, unorthodox. And he really does manage to work the boxing because of it. But I don't think he's going to out-technique Edson Barboza. That's not his route. What he could do is he could out-volume Edson Barboza. Edson's cardio hasn't always been there, and regardless of that fact, Shane Burgos has a much higher output. The bloke fucking doesn't stop throwing strikes. Burgos can pressure too, everything, as it comes with a highly or high volume game, everything's in combination, and he pours it on. He is so exciting. The thing is, what Edson doesn't have in volume, he has in power and damage. I think he can do similar things to Shane. but just kind of score points off the power rather than the volume. As for grappling, both guys have grappling chops. Neither really go to the takedown well very often. We could definitely see it in this fight. More likely for Shane Burgos, I believe, to be the one to initiate grappling exchanges. But yeah, I think these guys are both game, and we're going to see a fight at distance. And if you give Edson Barboza space, it's going to be a rough night. You know, you look through his previous opponents who did that. The most obvious one to pick out is Dan Hooker, who is a really similar guy to Shane Burgos, essentially. A really long frame, an 8-limb fighter. And, you know, Edson chewed him up on the outside. One of the more brutal beatdowns in UFC history. Shane Burgos will come forward and he will take that space up at times, but with his dimensions, his own game plan, for the most part, is to fight on the outside. So, stylistically, I just don't like that against a guy as good and as devastating as Barboza, with that kicking game and with the power, especially at 145. So it's Edson Barboza for mine via a close decision at 3.24 times. And you know, you have to wait to the end of the video typically to get the Tadpole's bets, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to play a half unit on the draw at $81 over on Bet365. In some threads on some other cappers videos, I've seen some people talking about it, but no one actually having the balls to play it, throw their name on the line, their records on the line, and take this outside chance, right? But the Tadpole's going to do it. I'm that type of punter. I think this draw bet is as good as a draw bet gets, because both guys are incredibly capable of scoring 10-8 rounds. You know, Shane Burgos is so durable, but he gets hit and he gets knocked down, and I could totally see Edson Barboza landing multiple takedowns, multiple knockdowns, rather, in a round, and Shane surviving that somehow for Edson to take a 10-8. On the other side, I could also totally see Shane Burgos taking a 10-8 round with his volume and his pressure, especially late, especially that third round where Edson's cardio sometimes isn't there, and especially if Barboza has won the first 2 rounds and Burgos is chasing a finish. A 10-8 in the last is fucking live. So a draw is absolute value here, guys, and a half unit on that. Whew, I'm all over it. Get me excited for this shit, bro. Fuck yeah. Next fight along, Chookagian versus Viviane Araujo. Chookagian 1.38 times and $1.72. Viviane 3.61 times and $2.10. In the striking styles, in the striking matchups, this is very close. I absolutely love Viviane Araujo's jab. I love her leg kicks, and she has the power and speed advantage in this bout. Chookagian's very good though. She's long, she's tall, she's much taller than Viviane. The reach is similar, but you know, unlike the other fighters, she actually uses her dimension. She uses that reach. Even though she's not at a reach advantage, the height will still account for something. And she does use her God-given attributes well. You know, the teep kicks, the jabs, she's very active. She's always throwing. She's not very accurate, but she is one of the busiest fighters on the roster. And lets it be known. Everyone in that arena knows when fucking Caitlin Chookagian's fighting. She is the Sharapova of MMA with her cries, yelling, you know, and she scores off the back of it. Don't get it twisted. Judges listen. They might not have eyes, but they got fucking ears. That's for sure. Defense, both girls also very reliable. Araujo's head movement is slick. Caitlin's head movement less good, but her footwork makes up for it. She is very evasive, good lateral movement, good range management. This is a fucking close fight. A big factor here that I had to consider was Viviane has the better grappling. Takedowns are a big feature of her game. She has what I believe to be a pretty heavy top presence. She's got a great base. She's got good BJJ, and she is active on the mat. And Chookagian is no good on the ground. Her takedown defense sits at around 50%. It's heinous. Once she's against the cage, in that clinch fight, she doesn't seem to be that strong. Viviani, with her head movement, bobbing and weaving, I think she can definitely cut off the cage, get Caitlin meshed up on her heels, and capitalize there with the takedowns. The thing is, I'm incredibly reluctant to fade Chookagian. I've done it in the past. It hasn't paid off for me. And, I don't really think Viviani gets a finish in this fight. I don't think she finishes Caitlin. She's dangerous. She has the power. She's got jiu-jitsu as well. But, Chookagian's only been finished twice. And those names, Jessica Andrade, Valentina Shevchenko, massive hitters. Incredibly talented fighters. And when it goes to decision, Chookagian is 12 wins and 2 losses. And the 2 losses were split decision losses. She is a points fighter through and through. So when you're looking for a route for Viviani, or just the method, it's hard to fade Chookagian. But I do love Araujo, and the takedown factor, that's what swings it for me. The other thing is, if she had less volume, I would be, I'd probably be picking Chookagian. But in this one, Viviani, she still has the output, she still has that pace, and she has the power, and she has the fucking takedowns. Great head movement. I think she's going to slip, get inside, unleash everything in combinations. I think she can hurt Chookagian, which may account for the minor disadvantage she's at in terms of volume. And then, the ground game to seal it for mine. Araujo, a decision at 5.10 times. And if you're looking at the other side, if Chookagian wins, it's a decision, right? And she's 1.6 times for the decision. So that's no value in such a close matchup. So Araujo. Next fight, Matt Schnell versus Rogerio Bontorin. Matt Schnell, 1.53 times and $1.58. Bontorin, 2.88 times and $2.29. I won't be too long on this fight. This will be my quickest breakdown of the night. Just a little flag on this one, though. This is a very, very close candidate for fight of the night. If there wasn't so many other bangers, I'd be way more confident in calling this fight of the night. But, you've got Ferguson, Dariush, you've got Chandler, Oliveira, you've got I've already forgotten, you've got Burgos, Barboza. Oh my days. Anyway, Matt Schnell, he's the better striker, better movement, more speed, better volume, better defense, more versatility in his strikes as well. Rogerio Bontorin, he's the better BJJ grappler. Matt Schnell, he's gotten plenty of submissions in his career, and he is no stranger to the jiu-jitsu world, but it's not on the same level as Rogerio. And Matt Schnell's takedown defense is bad. His jiu-jitsu, as solid as it is, it's probably not good enough to survive multiple scrambles with Bontorin. So the question is, can he keep it standing? I think he can. The stats would say otherwise, but his IQ is actually not that bad. He is improving fight to fight. His durability on the feet is kind of shot. He gets knocked out. He's been knocked out 3 times. The chin is battle tested, but his footwork is solid, and I honestly think his striking defense has improved with the boxing improvements that he's made, and the boxing improvements that he has made, they're big. He is a slick boxer. And in terms of the durability, Rogerio is not really a threat on the feet. Only 3 knockout wins from 19 pro fights. So it's a complicated fight, but it's simple in the terms of that. Keep it on the feet, you win. If you're on Rogerio Bontorin, props to you. It is a close fight. And the Rogerio Bontorin sub at 13 times on verdict is absolute value. But I'm going to be conservative and play the percentages on this fight. And I'm going to take a Matt Schnell decision at 2.13 times. win the stand-up game, not overextend, stay disciplined, pressure Rogerio. That's got to be the game plan. 29-28, 30-27, unanimous decision for Danger. Matt Danger. That's his nickname, right? Pretty sure. Fact check in the comments. Co-main event. Tony Ferguson versus Benil Dariush. Ferguson, the favourite on verdict, 1.76 times, but the betting underdog, $2.26. Benil Dariush, 2.23 times and $1.60. Straight into it. Tony Ferguson, he is a better striker than Benil Dariush. He is more lucid. He has more volume. No one's more lucid than Tony Ferguson. No one. Defensively, both guys quite similar. Benil Dariush, he is a fucking good striker. He has nice boxing. He kicks less than Tony. But both guys kind of get it done in an unorthodox manner. Benil Dariush loves to spin. He's knocked guys out with the spins. But if you're talking unorthodox shit, no one is crazier than Tony. No one's more lucid. No one's more unorthodox or crazier than Tony Ferguson. I think Benil Dariush has an advantage in this fight in close, within range. I think he's stronger than Tony. He has a good clinch game. He's got good takedowns. Tony has a great wrestling pedigree. He's a D1 wrestler, but his defensive wrestling is his downfall to an extent. His takedown defense reads about 70%, but, that is his Achilles heel. Charles Oliveira, that last fight for Tony Ferguson, what he did was so impressive. And, he held Tony down, which is not good. Dariush could do similar things in this fight, Is Dariush on the same level as Charles Oliveira? That's a hard read to make. This fight will give us some answers on that, I suppose. In terms of the jiu-jitsu game, both guys incredible BJJ. Both guys have been submitted, so the defense there is, you could question it, but only one time each. So not multiple submission losses for each guy. And Tony's not going to tap. That armbar via Charles, or from Charles, is evidence enough of that. It's a compelling fight, man. Tony is on a skid. 2-fight loss streak after a fucking 15-fight win streak. Whatever it is, 13-fight win streak. His losses, though, number 1, number 2 in the division. The knocks on Tony, lots of damage in those fights, and he was dominating those fights. Is he too old? Again, this fight is going to answer that for us. Benil Dariush is very dangerous. He's very game. He is the verdict underdog, and he is probably the play. And him via a submission is the value shot. Like I said, I think Benil Dariush is stronger than Tony, and Tony's defensive wrestling isn't that great, albeit his high-level D1 pedigree. But I'm not going to be fading Fergie, man. He is super chaotic. I think he gets back to those ways. He was incredibly... I don't want to take away from Charles Oliveira, because what he did was so dominant, but Tony Ferguson did appear to be more conservative in that last fight than previous showings. Perhaps showing some remnants from that beatdown via Justin Gaethje. Yeah, I expect a war in this fight. I'm taking Tony Ferguson via a decision at 3.89 times. No one trains like this guy. His conditioning is fucked off the charts. And yeah, I think he can ramp it up. I think he can land the shots. The takedowns are going to be what's dangerous, but he is a scrambling maniac. And hopefully he doesn't get held down by Benil. Alright, time for the main event. We've got Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the 155 strap. Life in the lightweight division post-Khabib. Let's see who that begins with. Charles Oliveira, 2.17 times, the verdict dog, but the bookie favourite, $1.72. Michael Chandler, 1.86 times and $2.10. The big questions that I wanted to answer for myself in this fight is, where does this fight take place? If it's on the feet, let's talk about that. Charles Oliveira is elite. He is a submission grappler, but man, his striking is so good. His Muay Thai is incredible. He's super slick. He's got great movement, both defensively and offensively. His counter game, solid. His spins, unorthodox. Lots of kicks. As for Chandler, less tools in the tool bag, but fuck what he does well. He is a power guy. He is a pressure guy. He has great angles. He has great setups. He cuts off the cage. His forward movement is smothering. He does have a kicking game too. The leg kicks are on. He likes to do that to set up his hands and to ease his transitions into range and ease his ability to cut off the cage. That's the stand-up. The ground, the jiu-jitsu, it's Charles Oliveira all day. He is the UFC leader in submission wins. He's an absolute stud on the ground. But Michael Chandler, he has got good Brazilian jiu-jitsu too. He's a 10th planet black belt. He's definitely not as dangerous as Charles Oliveira. No one's going to argue that point with me. He's only won fights via chokes. So he doesn't necessarily... of course he does have, he's a black belt. But the variability in submissions isn't there for him like it is for Charles. Charles can get it done wherever. The thing is, Michael Chandler, his defense, his wrestling defense and defense on the mat is great. He has never been finished via a submission. And that comes from his background, his wrestling and his positioning. Oliveira is a good wrestler. I talked about it briefly in the co-main. He showed us that completeness against Tony Ferguson. So dominant, so strong, strength that really exceeds his size and his frame. And you look, Tony Ferguson is also a 10th planet black belt like Michael Chandler. And Charles Oliveira did that to him on the ground. Could have finished that fight to a lesser man. If Tony Ferguson didn't have a son that was double jointed, could have been game over. The thing that I talked about in the co-main breakdown was Tony's defensive wrestling. It's not that great. And Chandler doesn't have the same problem. Wrestling is his foundation. I'm confident in this fight that Michael Chandler is the better wrestler. And the thing is, he's not just an out-and-out wrestler. He has combined that across a very fruitful MMA career now, which is important, as wrestling and MMA, the two, they don't always translate because you've got so many more things to worry about with MMA. Elbows to the head, knees on the entry, the hands, the kicks, obviously. I don't want to underestimate either guy, and I feel like in predicting either one, it's going to seem that way, which is not the case. I have so much respect for both of these fighters. This is such a high-level bout, and I'm honestly torn. I'm trying to nitpick differences to try and find an edge. As for conditioning, we'll go that route. Conditioning, both of their conditioning is good. I would have to give Chandler the tick though, simply due to experience. He has fought the full 5 rounds on 4 occasions, and he's been slated for it another 5 times plus. Another factor, the size of Charles, the length, the height. I feel like it's a non-factor due to the way that Chandler fights, crowding his opponent, pressuring, using his speed and explosivity. So there are just a couple of other variables I considered. As for methods, man, this fight, it likely ends in a finish. Combined 65 professional fights, only 11 times have these guys gone to a decision. And you're looking at the likely outcomes. For Chandler, it's a knockout. On verdict right now, it's paying 2.26 times. That's shit. For Oliveira, it's the submission. Right now on verdict, it's 3.18 times. It's not value. So, in such a close fight, I'm going to dig for an unfavourable outcome for either guy. And it's going to be in favour of Michael Chandler. And Michael Chandler by submission. Because I do think he wins this fight. I think he's going to get the better of the striking exchanges with the speed, the pressure, the power, the volume. And then I think he's the better wrestler. I think that he's going to somewhat negate Charles' advances. And then I think he is good enough to get his own takedowns, get his own offensive wrestling going, and stay safe from top position. You know, he's got an elite IQ. He's never been subbed. Kevin Lee, he showed us that you can take Charles Oliveira down and you can control him because he will search for submissions off his back. You just got to fucking mind your P's and Q's down there, because that triangle, the armbar, they're going to get thrown up. Chandler's probably got to fight for half guard where he's going to be most safe, and I think he can, and I think he will. And then I think he can drown Charles late. You know, the early knock, the knocks that I've made on Oliveira was his quitter's mentality. That's not really there anymore. You know, he has shown heart since that last loss where we saw that quitter's mentality, which came to Paul Felder 4 years ago. But it's a probing thought in the back of my brain. And if anyone can drown you, it's Michael Chandler. So, yeah. That being said, Michael Chandler, 4th round submission, 49.78 times. 10th black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, has notched 7 pro submissions of his own. One of those actually came in the 4th round against Eddie Alvarez. And, you know, Oliveira is the better submission grappler. Alright, I've said it tons of times already. But he has actually been submitted himself on 3 occasions. And like I said, he can get controlled down there, which Chandler could expose with his elite wrestling. Anyway, that's the play. Bets, we'll wrap it up. We've got 3 singles. You've heard one. It's the half unit on Barboza Burgos to end in a draw. $81 on Bet365. The other 2, top of the prelims is where we go with it. It's the Lando Venata versus Mike Grundy fight. I've got this fight to end via submission in favour of either fighter at $5.50 on Sportsbet. Mike Grundy is an out-and-out ground guy, a submission specialist. 8 pro wins via submission. And, you know, Lando Venata, he's also plenty capable on the mat, especially early when his conditioning is not shot to pieces. And, you know, Grundy's going to enforce the wrestling exchanges early, and Lando is a crazy enough guy to try and whip up an anaconda, a guillotine on an entry. As for these guys' win methods, submissions actually rate their most favoured win method. And you look, both guys have also lost via submission. Of their 30 combined pro fights, 15 have ended via a submission. That's 50%. So $5.50 over here on Sportsbet is a really juicy price. The next single play of the night, we open up the verdict card. It's Jacare Souza versus Andre Muniz. I've also got this fight to end via submission in favour of either guy at $5. Like I aforementioned, I think this fight plays out on the ground for the most part. Neither guy has been submitted, but both guys hunt it like a motherfucker. Both guys, by far, submissions are their most common win method. And yeah, this could go to the judges' scorecards with neither guy really giving up the spot for a submission for their opponent with their IQ and knowledge of the jiu-jitsu game. But I think someone breaks, and I think someone gives up the submission shot, which I have picked to be Jacare Souza breaking in my prediction. But yeah, they're the 3 single plays. The multi, we're combining those 2 singles. We're taking Venata and Grundy, fight to end via submission. Jacare and Muniz, end via submission. Multiing that up at $30.23 over on Sportsbet. That's the multi. Risky legs, but value in both. I could have really thrown together an all-out accumulator on this one, but I'm just going to sit back on this main card and enjoy the fuck out of it. It is an incredible event. I may be interested in some prop plays later. So Be active on the socials, guys. They're all down in the description. Follow me on Verdict to catch how I'm scoring fights on come fight night. Also down in the description, all my records from this year, last year, and the career, both verdict, prediction, and betting records. So, completely transparent, guys, as always. These bets that I am relaying to you, I'm also putting my money on. So have faith in that. I wouldn't put something out there that I wouldn't put my own hard-earned dollars on. Aside from that, guys, it's been a big one. It's been real. Thanks for sticking around. If you have done, drop a like, drop a comment. Tell me your picks for this weekend, your bets. Argue with me, agree with me. Hopefully the latter. Let's get it. Catch up.